You're listening to When Love Comes, the podcast, a safe space for single women of faith on a journey of healing, growth, and preparing for the love you deserve. This resource was created with you in mind, so you'll be ready when love comes. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of When Love Comes, the podcast. I'm your host, April Nowlin. I am a relationship coach, and I'm on this crazy journey to help people to heal from heartbreak, to create a life that they love, and to prepare for the love that they deserve. So this episode, I have a wonderful couple, George and Latrice Ochieng. I met them a few weeks ago, and when I heard their story, I thought, you guys have got to hear this. So they're going to be talking about their journeys after heartbreak, what it looked like for their season of healing and rediscovery, and then finding love again. So my goal in sharing these stories is to remind all of us that love doesn't look the same for everybody. Healing doesn't look the same for everybody, but that everybody can create the love they deserve. Enjoy the episode. George and Lala, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
So I met you guys, a few weeks ago or so at an event. And after talking to Latrice, I was like, I need to have you guys on the podcast. So I'm super excited to have you guys here to share your story, to encourage others. I feel like the stories that we tell, there's always someone who reaches out and they're like, you know what? That was me. Or, this has really helped me. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
Not a problem.
So I want to start with a question that I always ask my guests. Where did you guys get your idea, your teachings, your thoughts about relationships?
Oh, you want me to go? Okay. Most of mine has been from, I guess, a lot of the situations that I've been in. I grew up in a single parent home. My dad died when I was very young. So I've learned about relationships from my mom, and then also just growing up around people who I've observed, my uncles and, a few friends here and there, but mostly family.
Latrice?
So similar, two-parent home. So I've been around people that have been in marriages and relationships and not always healthy. But then I also got married at a very young age, and so was married over 20 plus years. And so I can't quite say that it was the perfect marriage, but it worked for that time being. But a lot of influences with uncles and aunts that were in marriages, some good, some not so good. And then my own upbringing with my mom and my stepdad.
Okay. So, George, being brought up in a single parent household, how did that shape your thoughts about relationships?
It was different. It was more so, hey, don't get into a relationship until you're done with high school. So, mom was strict and more so concerned about us getting our education first. So, about relationships, I kind of figured it out a little bit on my own when I went to college, and then exposure to other people, and then also watching how my uncles interacted. That's where I got most of my formative education, if I can say that.
Okay. I like to ask that question because we don't realize how much our upbringing influences the type of relationships that we desire, what we think is a healthy relationship, how we overcompensate sometimes in relationships because of things that we've seen as a young child. I grew up with my dad and I call my bonus mom. She's my mom, but my bonus mom on one hand, and then I grew up with a single parent, my mother, who was an addict on the other hand. And so I found myself kind of in this middle of, I want, like the healthy two parent, but at the same time, I didn't want what I saw like my mom had. So it was just kind of this conflicted about relationships, right? So I always like to start with that. So Latrice, I want to talk about you. You mentioned this, and I want to talk about this as part of your journey that you had been married for 20 years and then found yourself starting over. So share with us just a little bit about that marriage and how you ended up doing something different.
Well, let me start first by saying that my current marriage and my previous marriage are literally like night and day for good reasons. I will say being married at a very young age, my ex, I had known him since the sixth grade. We got together at 14. and life happened. We had kids very early. We moved away from our family, literally to a totally different state. And we were in survival mode. So we had to figure it out. Probably 75% of our marriage was we were in survival mode. 75% of the time. And then I think as time went on and we were in our 30s, we started to, kind of taper off and figure it out. But we still had finances, we had kids, the kids were in school, they were in all kinds of sports. And we were also trying to figure out ourselves as adults, which really didn't happen. And so that was a pivotal moment for me once I got a divorce, 2012. Everything changed because I had to learn how to be an adult. Not just be an adult, but on my own. I had never lived by myself, never been on my own. And it was like, not even knowing myself outside of being a wife and being a mother. So that was challenging. And then I relocated to a city not too far, didn't know anybody. And I mean, I just really had to just dive into understanding who I was, who I wanted to be, and not allow my career to define me. And so
Yeah.
I had started therapy early on, like back in the early 90s, and it continued on with it. In fact, therapy has been probably the thing that saved me for the most part. So, but to speed up, so I feel like the difference between my marriage then and my marriage now is that I came into it fully whole, fully aware, self aware, of myself and my wants and my needs. And I didn't necessarily come into it with the expectation that, oh, you're going to have this role, I'm going to have this role, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. No, he kind of enhanced what I'd already put into practice. So it made it so much
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that single season. But I want to take a step back. A lot of people who have been on this show, a lot of people that I coach, were people who got married fairly young, right? So, as teenagers, as young adults. And I know that with doing the work that I'm doing, studies have shown that the more successful marriages happen when we marry later in life. And I mean, later in life, mid to late 20s, after that, right? Because we're babies. So, what are some of the things that marriage taught you, whether about yourself, what you wanted in a healthy relationship? What are some of the lessons you learned in that marriage?
Well, number one, don't get married too soon. I truly feel like you need to take time for yourself and learn about yourself, explore things, explore people, even explore your sexuality. I think that's a lot of problems that people run into is that they're not even comfortable in their own skin. They don't understand their bodies, let alone allow someone else or expect someone else to understand their body. So I think that was the first thing I could take away is that, while we made it work, we were way too young. We were immature. We weren't emotionally mature. We were not financially set. And so I think I don't have any regrets, but if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken time to, because I wanted to go to the Air Force. I wanted to go to college right after and all those different things. And I had to postpone all of that and then not even really getting to know myself. And so I also think the biggest thing is not putting your dreams and hopes on hold to support your significant other. You should be able to somehow either manage it to where you can take turns or you're supporting each other, or just make sure you're already equipped before you talk about partnering with someone because it's a relationship, but it's also a partnership. And so I did.
Yeah.
I put my career, I put my wants and needs, my hobbies, all those things on hold, and fully supported my ex all the way through, to his, undergrad, grad, all of that. And then I had to decide, okay, now I'm gonna put me first and still take care of the kids. So those are, I think, the two biggest takeaways is just make sure that you're ready, give yourself time, and then make sure that you have that understanding that, okay, we're either going to take turns or where are you in your career? What are your wants and needs? And how do we bring them together to support each other either at the same time or we take turns? So,
Yeah. Yeah. What you're talking about, I think, and more so women, we experience this in relationships, whether it's a marriage or, just a relationship, where we tend to lose ourselves
Absolutely.
within that relationship. And even a lot of the people that I coach, most of the people that I coach are they're in their 40s and 50s. And we still talk about, before getting into your next relationship, understanding who you are, what your purpose is, what your desires are, what you like, what you don't like, right? So that you can articulate your wants and needs to the other person. Another thing that you said that I think we don't talk about enough is that even in marriages, we are still individuals, right? We are in a partnership, but I feel like God still made us as an individual with hobbies and likes and dislikes. And so, even in those relationships, I think it's healthy to have some alone time, some me time, to take a solo vacation every now and again. That is one of the things that is my non negotiable in a relationship, is that I need one solo vacation a year. Now, that may be 48 hours, that might be 3 days, but I need to be alone. I need to be me and Jesus, and that's it. Not you, not the kids, right? So I think that women really go through that. So when we hear this number 20, man, 20 years, why did you stay? What was the defining moment that you were like, this, or and that you both could have? I'm not saying just you, but what was the defining moment that was like, okay, it's time to move on from this?
Well, why did I stay is pretty simple. I wanted to break the cycle. I didn't want to be married two, three, four, five times, which in hindsight, I would have been totally fine if that was my journey. But I did. I wanted my kids to understand that they could experience a healthy marriage, parenting, all of those different things that I didn't necessarily experience as a child. And they got that. We may not have been the best for each other, but we were there for our kids. We were involved. Like, we made sure we showed up. We showed affection. We showed love. We showed frustration, and we would sit down with our kids and we would have conversations with them. We wouldn't hide things from our kids and say, well, you're too young and we'll let you know when you're of age. We were very, very open with our kids. So for me, I felt like I owed it to them. But at the same time, people get in the habit of staying for the kids and sacrificing their own happiness. And what I've learned is it doesn't matter how old or what age the child is, because when I divorced, my kids were in college and they were broken up about it. In fact, they lean more towards their father's side, and they didn't understand, well, mom, why didn't you make it work? Why didn't you fix it? And they were adults, they were young adults. And we went through a period where they didn't speak to me, and they had to understand that things were going to be different, and, we were not going to be together. And it was difficult for them. But I had to choose myself at some point. And that's exactly what I did. And I took 8 years of being single and loving on myself and doing therapy. And I think that's critical too. You shouldn't wait on therapy when things are wrong, when things go south. And, if I had known what I know now, we would have been in therapy early on. But I
Yeah.
didn't know, because my family, my parents didn't exude that. That's not, something that they modeled. So I didn't know. But that was the first thing that I made sure, that not only did I do therapy just for myself, but I wanted to make sure that if I ever got in a relationship, which I absolutely in my mind thought it would never happen, because I didn't want it. I had no
Yeah.
desire.
Yeah.
He'll tell you, I fought it
Yeah.
for so long because I figured out how to be single. I did
Yeah.
single very well,
Yeah.
but I'm so
Yeah.
happy that I got the opportunity to be a wife again and do it right this time.
Yeah, I share those sentiments that I don't believe people should stay together just for the children, because children aren't stupid. Children see, they hear. And when I do coach people, if they're on the brink of divorce and we talk about things like this, and then let me reiterate for those listening, I am pro marriage, but I do believe that divorce can be an answered prayer. And they tell me things like, well, I'm only staying for the kids. My question is, what example are you setting for your children? I divorced my daughter's dad when she was 6 months old because I saw our future. I knew our future. And 17 years later, I have no regrets. He has no regrets. My daughter has no regrets, right? And I remember at that time people telling me, well, you just need to stay together for her. But the question I had to ask myself is, what example was I giving her? And when you talked about choosing you, so many times we choose others in a relationship and then our children see that. There's another episode that's coming out soon where I'm talking to a lady who divorced at 50 and her children question, why did you stay? Like, we saw you fall apart. We watched this, right? So I always caution when I hear people say, I'm staying for the kids, because what exactly are you teaching them? So, George, what was your life like before you met Latrice?
I was a lone ranger and she plucked me from the sky. No, I was also coming out. I just come out of a 4 year long marriage. We both went our separate ways. It didn't work out like we planned, but beyond that, it was just a typical African in America trying to figure it out, and was, I guess, looking for the house with a picket fence. So, I'd always dated older for some reason. I don't know. That was just something that happened. Even my interests were. I'm sure my mom can say, yeah, I kind of saw it. So the first marriage was, I'd always envisioned that would be my forever marriage, but it didn't work out that way. And so it was probably maybe a year and a half is when we met. And I mean, I hadn't ruled it out, still trying to understand where I went wrong, and just kind of finding myself. Therapy was not in the picture. And like she said, therapy for me happened on the tail end. And so it was one of those, hey, I guess, let's check a box or something. But we definitely got into it more when I started dating Latrice, and it was actually one of her non-negotiables. So we were talking, like they say, during the talking stage. She asked, "Are you opposed to therapy?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Well, we're going to start therapy." So I think it was probably a week or 2 weeks in to dating, we were already in therapy, and it's been very, very beneficial. And also coming from a background where it was never spoken about, like, Africans, the first thing we're going to say is, well, let's talk to the pastor. Let's go to church. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes, I think when that becomes the immediate answer, there's still a lot of, okay, you have to believe in what the pastor says. So people are invested in what the pastor says, as opposed to, let's get somebody who's totally impartial, who doesn't know us. We're not necessarily in their congregation, but they can give us some very objective ways of looking at dealing with issues in relationships and even just personally. So there were things that I didn't know I was holding as, I guess, what would be called traumatic now, that I was dealing with, things that I had seen growing up. And now I was, for lack of a better phrase, trying to craft my life so that I can circumnavigate some of the things that I saw growing up. It was very beneficial. And of course, she just turned everything around for me. I mean, we're in such bliss right now.
Yeah, so I just have to give a disclaimer. If you are listening to this podcast and not watching the video, I need you to go to YouTube and watch the video, because these two are, they're just so cute, y'all. Like, they are so cute. So I just want y'all to know, if you're not watching the video, go watch the video.
Thank you.
So,
It's all her. It's all her.
but George, I'm glad that you both have talked about therapy. So, I grew up in a generation, my parents, my grandparents, where we didn't talk about things. I grew up in church, in faith based communities. We didn't talk about things. Every solution was just pray about it. And I believe in prayer, do it every day. But I also believe in a circle of care, a team of care. And that might mean your pastor, your best friend, your mom, your coach, your therapist, all these, your dietitian, like all these people working together to help you heal. And I know one of the things that I am a proponent of now, being a relationship coach, someone who has had 3 failed marriages, is seeking counsel early. And I tell my clients, it is a non negotiable for me that when we get to the place that we think this might be it, that we think this might be something, we're going to counseling. We're going to coaching. We're going to someone that can look beyond our blinders and our focus, right? Because when we get into that relationship, we get all the warm and fuzzies and, everything is roses. And I think we need someone early on that can say, okay, let's look at the big picture. So I love that you guys both talked about therapy. So I want to talk now about that single season. So you both had been married, different time frames, but you both have been married. So Latrice, I just want you to share with us, what did that season look like? So even starting from initially getting divorced, like what were you feeling and thinking?
Well, I'm sure most people would think, oh my goodness, get on the dating scene and just get your groove back and party and all those different things. That was the furthest from my mind. Again, fear of, trying to figure it out. I'm a type A, OCD. Like, I got to have all the answers. I have to be in control. I like my life in order. I don't mind spontaneity, but I prefer a more structured, grounded environment. And so that was my goal, is creating my peace. I can't really ever say that I've experienced peace from childhood to adulthood. So I know peace was not what I had, and I had to figure it out. And so I started doing some yoga. Didn't stick with it in the beginning because it was pretty tough. I moved to Austin, Texas, and that's Yogi City, and surrounded by spiritual faith-based people, and joined a church there and found my place and got my apartment and really started to just learn to sit in stillness and in quietness. Like, that was a struggle because we were always going, things were always moving, and I had to be comfortable with sitting with myself. Probably one of the most uncomfortable things that I've ever experienced. Just sitting in silence with yourself, thoughts racing, you're emotional, you're crying, you don't know why you're crying. And that's another thing too, getting married early on and not understanding your hormones and all the different chemical imbalances and depression and all those different things. And you're made to suppress it because your partner doesn't understand, doesn't want to understand, can't handle it. You don't quite know, your medical providers don't know. And so it's a forever guessing game. So I wanted to make sure that in the beginning, probably the first 2 years, I took time to just, outside of working and things like that, but really pour into myself, my mental, my emotional space. And so I got with a couple of ladies that I met in Austin and just started reading. We did a book club and then talked about creating space, holding space for ourselves, what that looks like, creating rituals. And so I did. I created a morning ritual and then an evening ritual. And I made sure I stuck to those things. I started journaling. And I can look back to this day and at some of those journals, and it brings me to tears, because I have evolved. I mean, far greater than I could have ever imagined. And so, like I said, the first 2 years was creating my safe space, protecting that safe space, not allowing anyone to make you feel guilty because you're okay being alone. I understood I wasn't lonely. I was alone, and I was okay with that. And then once I developed that and I was strong in that and confident in that, then I started to dive into my social life and get to know myself and other people. And I still was adamant that I didn't want to be in a relationship. Did I have needs? Absolutely. I was an adult and I could handle it, very mature. And so I was also comfortable with, again, my skin, my sexuality, understanding what pleasures me, what pleases me, what I like, what felt good, what didn't feel good. So I didn't need anybody to come in teaching me or trying to tell me what that was supposed to look like. And I think a lot of people, a lot of men that I met, they couldn't handle that. They couldn't handle it. And that's one thing that I stayed true to, is that I don't mind if it's a mutual pleasure, but you need to understand, I know what I want and I know what I need. And so took that period of just, getting out, getting to know people and things like that. And I enjoyed it. But for the most part, I I was in my career. I was in the middle of my career, doing well, traveling, doing contracting, and so I just spent a lot of time just reflecting and traveling too. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
the travel bug. I got bitten by the travel bug, so I did a lot of solo traveling. In fact, when I met him, that was one of the reasons why I kind of shied away, because I just didn't want to be obligated, or I didn't want to feel like I had to give up some things because I had my own individuality. I had created a space that worked for me. And I didn't think that anyone would fit in that space because it was rigid. I had lost a lot of weight because of my hormones and did a complete diet overhaul and became a pescatarian, a vegetarian first, then a pescatarian. So lost 65 pounds, just a true transformation. And so
Hmm.
my health and wellness was great. My mental health was great. I was in a very, very great space. And so while I didn't realize that this would be a chapter of my life, I felt like God was definitely preparing me for this chapter without me knowing. And I eventually welcomed it, but it was tough. It was tough. Probably I would say
Yeah.
the first month.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say month. I think I gave in sooner than I realized. I won't even say gave in, but I realized
you
he was
came
different.
around. You came around.
No, I felt like he was just different than the people I had come in contact with. I mean, just his mannerisms, he's very respectful. Just he courted me.
Yeah.
He went the extra
Yeah.
mile and he was very consistent. And I
Yeah.
think out of
Yeah.
all of it, I like him. And I tell people
Yes. Yes.
like you can love people, you can be in love with people, but to like your partner, like I get giddy when I hear his voice and I know he's coming in, and just like a school age girl, I still get that same butterfly feeling even after 6 years.
I love it. I love it. So I want to touch on a few things that you said that I think are very important. One is that we have to choose our healing. We have to choose to heal. So coming out of a divorce or a breakup, I've seen it go one or two ways, right? We choose this path of healing where we are going to sit in our feelings, we're going to feel the feels, we're going to cry, we're going to do the things to heal. And then there's this other path of I am just going to wallow, I am going to not pursue anything positive. I've been on both sides. After my second marriage, I wilded out for 6 months, and I'm talking about wilding out. And then I felt like God was like, "You good now?" And I was like, "All right, I'm good." Like, "I'm good, God. I'm good. All right, I'm ready to get back to reality." But I think of it like this is when we are going through healing after heartbreak, it's like being a seed put into the ground and you have a choice to make. Am I planted or am I buried?
Mm.
If I'm planted, that means that I am going to do the things to grow. And some of those things are hard, right? You think about a seed having to push through the ground to actually grow. That takes some intentionality, that takes some time, that takes some effort, some nutrients. Or I can be this seed that just sits underground and I'm buried. And this happened to me and that happened to me. And so it excites me when I hear people like you talk about what it was to get through that season, because it's not always roses, it's not always pretty, but look at the result, right? And let me say this, the result is not another marriage. The result is the person you became that prepared you for this marriage. And so many times we focus on healing for the next relationship, for the next marriage, instead of healing just for me. So thank you for your transparency. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think accountability is huge, and I had to hold myself accountable, and I had to point out the things that I didn't do well in my marriage or even as an individual, because we're so quick to say, oh well, he did this or she did this, and I did, but it didn't do me any good, it didn't get me anywhere. And so I had to figure out what changes could I make. And it wasn't that I was looking to get married again, trust me, that was not it. But it was more so being in, even in friendships, and other platonic relationships, I still didn't want to carry the same, behavior into those relationships. So I'm always big on solutions. I want to acknowledge the problem, and we can sit with the problem for a couple of days or whatever. I never encourage people to sit with their problems for too long, because then you literally become that problem, and it's just difficult to get out of. And so you acknowledge it, you face it, you address it, but then what are you going to do about it? Just like you make plans for everything else, I literally wrote out a plan. How do I fix these things? I can't do it by myself. I don't want to do it by myself. But I always have my therapist in my back pocket, and a close friend, and then of course God. He was probably tired of hearing from me. Absolutely tired of hearing
Nah,
from me. But accountability. I decided that I wanted a new life and I wanted a new me. And I just took steps and put those steps in place to make it happen. And it was not easy. By no means.
yeah.
By no means.
Yeah, yeah. So, George, you at this point coming out of a 4-year marriage, right? Some people may say, well, that doesn't compare to a 20-year, but let me tell y'all, divorce is divorce, whether it's 6 months, 6 years, divorce is divorce. So, George, what did your journey look like after your divorce?
So same thing. I thought I was gonna wild out and just be out here and continue sowing my royal oats. But yeah, I'm not a prince. It doesn't play the same way. But no, I went through my depression. Because I felt like being a firstborn, I felt like I was quite the failure. There was things that shoot I had written out when I was in high school. Married by 27, kid by 30, number two by. None of that was even in the picture, and so I was very, very depressed, very disappointed with myself. Tunneling out of that, thankfully I had my sister who, she pretty much said, "Hey, listen, I'll pick you up. Just don't jump over the cliff. Just don't jump off it." And so it was difficult in a sense, but also reassuring just to know that you definitely have a support cast, and it's families there. Everybody says blood is thicker than water. I did have some friends who I could count on as well, who were still able to speak life into me. And then, of course, meeting her, that in itself was refreshing, even though we'd met before in passing. But just being able to work through some of my missteps, much like she did, I did a little bit different. It was more so a lot of soul searching moments by myself. I'm an extrovert's extrovert. So having to sit and deal with things was difficult and quite the hard pill to swallow. I'm always around a lot of people. So now that it's like God said, "Hey, I'm going to sit you down for a little bit. I need you to take stock of some things." I've been carefree, and it was quite an awakening. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? The reality of it, being out here in the streets is expensive.
Yes, it is.
And so, as much as I like to eat, I can budget for myself and spoil myself. But if I'm just going on multiple dates with
Yes.
different people, yeah, I had to do the math, and then the math wasn't mathing. My account was not appreciating the math, and I had other things going on. So yeah, it wasn't all that it's purported to be. That, oh man, you out here, you can play, and it's expensive. So I wasn't necessarily looking to get into a situation as well. I was just picking myself up. But yeah, it's not the same.
No,
It's not the same.
no. Them streets ain't cheap.
No, no, no. Thank goodness, no one asked me to fly him out. Then, I wasn't being asked to cash out before the date, and stuff like that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I did have my fun, but this is more welcome. I like being in a relationship, having somebody you can talk to on a regular basis, come home to, and like we can stare at the TV and something dumb will just set us off, and just little things like that.
Mhm, mhm. That's awesome. So, thank you for your transparency. We don't have a lot of men on the show, not by choice. Brothers, if y'all listening, come on the show. But I love to hear just the journey, because everyone's journey is different. And that's really the point of why I do this, is to tell the different stories, to let people know that you're not alone. No matter what your journey looks like, I guarantee you I've met someone that has either been on the journey, been through the journey, but that you're not alone. So now I want to get into how you guys met. So I know when we talked last week about you being on the show, I got to hear a little bit of the story. So y'all got to hear the story. So share with us about how you guys met.
I like his version better.
Of course. I'm the storyteller. So, well, we met through a mutual friend.
At a lounge.
Cigar lounge. She's going to do the ad libs. I'll just let y'all know. Okay.
Perfect.
So we met at a lounge. We'd met a year prior. And it was in passing. Same lounge, same mutual friend, same time of year.
Same day of the week.
Same day of the week, actually. But of course, fast forward to a year, this time I actually sat down and had a conversation. Let her tell it. First time I was being a busybody, so I didn't, I was all over the place doing my gubernatorial rounds. And so she was like, yeah, forget him, whatever. So I sat down this time and, we just had quite a plain conversation. And it so happens that we were all going to attend the wedding of another mutual friend the same Saturday. And so the conversation that Wednesday was, it was what, maybe 4 hours long?
No, it was every bit of 3+ hours.
Yeah. And so, of course, I'm super excited. I'm like, okay, this is interesting, very different. And I was absolutely looking forward to meeting her the next time.
Which is weird because within that 3-4 hour period, we're talking, we're drinking, we're smoking, we're doing all those things. And, me, just to kind of give you backstory and context, I would frequent this cigar lounge every Wednesday. It was kind of my like wind down Wednesday or whatnot. And so I'd go in and still have on my business attire, but I'd sit in a specific area and I'd make it clear, look, I'm not here to socialize. I just want to come in, have my drink, have my cigar, and be on my way. And so met him, and, he sat down, we talked and all those great things. But really, it was a surface conversation, nothing deep or anything. But what I took from that experience is, first of all, he could hold a stimulating conversation. And he kept my attention the whole time. And he would say little things that had me thinking, okay, he seems a little different, but all right. And then take it a step further. He ended up walking me to my car, because I think it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night. Walked me to my car. I think we stood out there another 30 minutes and talked.
Yeah.
And then he never asked me for my phone number. Never. I don't know if he was sure of himself that he was going to see me that Saturday. Not quite sure.
Okay, Joe.
He never even, nothing outside of, it was a pleasure meeting you, get home safe. He opened my door, closed my door, waved me off, and that was it. That was it. So, anyway.
Well, the groundwork had been laid down, so that's, hey.
So, did you guys go to the wedding together? What happened after that?
Now that's where the story really begins. So, of course, this wedding, mutual friend, we all smoke cigars and stuff like that. So I show up at the wedding, thinking it was the actual ceremony, but it was the reception. So, of course, I'm sitting and I'm like, okay, she's going to show up an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
It was 2 hours, and it wasn't my fault.
Well, it depends on if we're accounting for daylight savings. But anyway, so I'm sitting and I'm like, man, okay, I guess, she chose not to come. Because she was in also a situation, and I think she was going to bring a date, but she was still weighing the situation.
I was trying to figure out if I was going to fire that person or... So I hadn't fully committed to coming, so you're correct.
Right. She was, like they said, she was in an entanglement. Anyway, so I'm getting ready to go. And I'm like, you know what? I've celebrated with the bride and groom. I've waited and, well, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You got to know when to fold them. That's what Kenny Rogers said. So I said, you know what? Let me go and get up out of here. But as soon as I started to get up, out of the corner of my eye. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Well, there she go. Sat right back down like I wasn't doing nothing. So of course she walked in. She also had to go say her hellos, and then finally, we reconnected. And so that's literally, I think,
You're leaving out something important.
what happened.
When you stood up and you saw me from the window walking across the street, what did you immediately notice?
Well, we literally looked like we had called each other and said, hey, we're going to put on the same color clothing.
It was crazy. I mean, exact same color, to the point when I finally made it over to him. Because he had his little crew of women that were trying to get his phone number and try and figure out is he single and all of that. So when they saw me come in, I think they thought we were a couple. Immediately. They thought they were not happy whatsoever. He was relieved, but they were not happy. And so we ended up dancing the entire night. I mean, literally in a little corner, this cigar lounge that was supposed to be a reception. I mean, it was very, very small. It had like a wooden platform or patio.
Yeah, something like that.
And we stayed out there and danced all night long. And finally, when I actually left early, I came late and I left early.
Mm-hmm. Cinderella.
I had to be home before I turned into a pumpkin. He walked me to my car again.
This time I asked for her phone number.
This time,
come on, George, come through.
And I did it one better. I called it right there and then. I was not going to play that.
I hadn't even closed my door. He called, and I'm thinking to myself, who is this calling me at this time of night? And so he's like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, you gave me the right number, because you seem like that person that would give me an incorrect number. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so he stayed on the phone with me until I got home. I think we ended up talking until about 3 or 4 in the morning. Kind of took off from there. And it's been great ever since.
Nice. So I love hearing people's origin stories. And then I love hearing both people try to tell it. You guys, you did great. So I want to talk about, so Latrice, you mentioned earlier in our conversation and earlier in the show that you were in this place in life where you're just kind of like, I'm good. I don't know if I'm going to be married again. Don't know if I'm going to get another relationship. I'm good. George, you had kind of wilded out a little bit, but was like, I still like relationships. So, who knows how life is going to go. So tell me, when was that defining moment that you each felt like, yeah, this is it?
I'm going to let you go.
Let me make a slight correction. I knew for a fact I didn't want to get married again. There was no, there's a possibility. No, it was off the table. That door, that chapter, that book was closed.
Not locked, closed.
In my mind, it was locked, thrown in the ocean. It was gone.
Nah.
And I think probably, so do I have to, okay. We met, long story short.
She ghosted me.
I ghosted him for 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Week and a half, 2
That
weeks.
was about 2 weeks. I went back to look. It was about 2.5 weeks. And everybody kept saying, oh my God, he's such a great guy. Trust me, you know what? And every time I would meet someone that knew him, I mean, I'm like, is this dude like telling people to tell me this? Like everywhere I go. And that was another thing that was nerve-wracking. He knew and was known by everybody. I didn't know if that was a good thing or not, because I'm a very private, I don't know nobody, I don't want to be known type person. And I'm just thinking to myself, why do they keep saying the same thing? Consistency. And so I think the last draw for me, because the lady, the mutual friend that introduced us, we also worked together. She'd come up to my office every single day. Oh my God, you got to talk to him. He's texting me asking, what happened? You're not returning his calls. You got to talk to him. He's so cool. I mean, he's a stand-up guy. And I mean, I'm thinking, well, then you date him. Like, what is the deal? I was not in that space. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, I don't mind having a boo on the side, but I'm just not trying to be in a serious relationship. And so that Thursday, I believe it was on a Thursday, again, ran into somebody and they were like, no, he's a great guy. You trust me. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're a great person. He's a great person. You're going to be okay. So I did. I texted him on a Thursday night, and I want to say it was like around 11.
No, it was Friday.
No, it was Thursday. Okay, Friday. Thursday, Friday. Was it around 11?
It was Friday. About 11ish.
It was about 11 o'clock at night because he was already in the streets with his friends, and it was literally 5 minutes away from where I lived. Mind you, we've only had 2 encounters, one at the cigar lounge and then there, and I think we went to, no, that was it. I think that was it. And I called him, and he was out at a place that I frequent 5 minutes from my home, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to come through? Now, mind you, I've never, ever, ever, ever invited anybody over to my house. I'm a very private person. But because everybody vouched for him, I said, you know what? I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to see if he's who he say he is.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for this. So I'll let you take it from here.
So, of course, I'm out.
In the streets.
And the text that I was outside the house. And, of course, the text comes in, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What are the odds? And so, of course, she's like, hey, if you're not busy, come through. And I'm like, that's different. So, of course, I had actually, I had gone to this spot with one of my friends. And I just told him, I was like, hey, buddy, you got to take an Uber. I got to go see a man about a horse. And I'm not proud to say that, but, I guess when they say opportunity knocks, sometimes you just got to.
You got to answer.
Got to answer. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me go. Let me take care of some stuff real quick, and I'll make it over.
That's not what he said. He was like, I need to go grab some things. Like insinuating as if,
Right.
We're grown. Give a man a call at 11 p.m.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well, she was like, look, now this was the phrase. You're dealing with a grown woman. I got what you need. I said, all right. Okay. So anyway, I show up. We ended up talking pretty much the whole night.
The whole night.
That's it.
That's all we did was literally laugh because he's a clown and talked all night.
And then went to breakfast the next morning.
Yeah, that was our first official, I guess, outing.
No, not an outing.
Well, I mean, we went to brunch.
Oh, yes, at Maple Leaf.
Maple
That's
Leaf.
right.
We went to brunch.
Went to brunch at Maple Leaf. And then it was.
From that point on.
That was it.
We were inseparable.
That was it.
Yeah.
I love it. So I want to touch on one more thing before we close. Well, I have 2 more things.
Okay.
But one more. So, George, you mentioned earlier that you liked dating older women, and I know that you guys have an age difference. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that, and if there were things that you had to navigate with that.
Quite a bunch. I mean, so if I'm being honest and looking back, I think my interest in women who were older than I was started probably in high school, because I used to go to a Catholic school, but in, I guess, the higher classes in Kenya, it's called sixth form, which would be like pre-college or pre-university. There were girls there, and I was like, okay, man, shoot, I want to be one of the guys who's got access. But that's, if I'm looking back, that's really where I can say it began. And I mean, even in the neighborhood that we lived in, some of the girls that I talked to were a year, 2 years older than I was. So coming to find out, first of all, she doesn't look her age. And so when I found out there's like a 10-year gap, I said, wow, okay, that's different. And so it wasn't, I've dated older, so it wasn't a big thing to me. It was more so, I know she was hesitant a little bit. The difficulty for me, it still stems back to family values and navigating that, and then having lived in America. So, I did toss out all traditions and stuff, but there was going to be some pushback, and I knew that was probably going to happen, and it did. So therapy really helped with navigating that big time, because I think had we not been in therapy, this would not be a thing right now.
No, absolutely not.
At all. at all. So family, I did get a lot of pushback from family. My mom finally warmed up to it, but she wasn't like, oh my God, just especially once she figured out that yes, she's a gorgeous woman, but age range, and then she already had 2 kids. She was like, what are you doing? Why? It whew, where was it? 6 months to almost a year that we really weren't on speaking terms with my mom. And so yeah, so when she finally came around, thankfully, now they'll talk on their own every now and then. She's like, hey, where's my daughter? So but it was tough. It was tough initially.
I don't even think it was so much the age, because I think had he been 25 and I was 35, it may not have been a big deal. I think because of culture and because of her expectations, her focus was, can you have me a grandchild? So
Yeah.
had I been in the childbearing years, I think it would have been perfectly fine. But it was the fact that, okay, here she is at this age, and she cannot physically have kids of her own. That was off the table. And understandably, because culture, I get that. Now it wasn't going to work for me, but I was like, okay, hey,
Right.
this is what he's fully aware, and he can make those choices and decisions and whatnot. But this is what it is. And so it was very difficult in the
Yep.
beginning because she had her mind made up. She wanted grandkids, and with him being the firstborn, that was a big deal. That carry that lineage, carry that name, and there was a possibility that that wasn't going to happen. And so I don't think it was anything about me per se. It was more so
Hmm.
the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that we
Yeah.
worked
Now,
we worked through it.
yeah. Now, George, did you want children?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I kind of figured if it didn't already happen, it wasn't supposed to be. I mean, everybody's got their wants and needs. I also think that, we talked about adoption,
Yeah,
and that's,
and
still on the
surrogacy.
table
We
so as
talked about
well.
several options.
So
Okay.
it's that door's not closed. Just naturally,
Yeah.
I was okay with it not happening. I mean, I've seen situations where people have kids with the wrong person, and then it's hell to pay for after that. For me, I'm like, I literally walked through it. Even my therapist was like, "Look, before you go down this road, understand what you're doing." And I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone is different when it comes to children. I am 48. I am not looking to have more children, to raise more children. And I'm very open about that when I meet someone. If they desire children, that's not my journey. And I'm okay with that, right? And you have to be okay with that. And so I love that you guys were able to work together to figure out what's best for us. So even saying, this, adoption may still be on the table, but with full knowledge that like we're not going to have children naturally together. I think sometimes people go into relationships with this thought of I can change someone's mind or I can make something happen, you know. And so I'm glad that you guys were honest enough to say, this is it. And both of you were in a position to say, if this doesn't work for us, it won't work for us, right? Not forcing your marriage to happen. So I want to close with when I met you guys, you were telling me some of the things that you guys do just to maintain a healthy relationship. I know that you both have things in your past through divorce and culture and just the things that we were taught. And it sounds like you guys are really committed to making your marriage work. So, what are some of the things that you guys do, just those practical things to invest in your marriage and to create a healthy marriage?
But she's probably gonna say this at the same time. Checking in. We try to check in once a week at the very
At the
least.
very
At the
least.
very least, and then being intentional with our times for each other. There's nothing that we almost can't talk about, pretty much. And she knows if I'm withholding something, she'll let me sit in my little corner for a little bit, and then she's like, "Okay, come here." I got some scotch for you. Come on. What do we have to talk about? We'll carve out time and we'll just go
Yeah.
on walks. That was one of the
Yeah.
things that we used to do when we were dating. And we'll walk like maybe 3 miles and just talk. If nothing else, just spending time with each other. So she quickly became my best friend. And I can't hold a grudge or even be mad at her for more than a day because it's weird. It's
So
very weird. We're literally around each other almost 24/7. So, she'll go to work and I'm like, "Hey, do you need me to bring you something? Can I come and check on you? Are you okay?" And vice versa. So, it's one of the things that she's made me become is a better communicator. Because before, as much as I'm an extrovert, I didn't do well communicating with my mate. So, with her, I've been very intentional, and she'll hold me to it. She's like, "Hey, you got to speak to me. I'm not a mind reader. You can't tell me something one time and think that, okay, I've just got it. You may have to repeat, and it's okay as long as you're not lashing out or whatever the case may be. It's okay, but you still have to communicate." And so that's one of the things that I think we do well is we maintain the communication and we still value the friendship. Your turn.
there's so many things. He's being modest. Like there's so many great things that we do. I think that I feel like we found the formula that works for us. I can't say that it'll work for anybody else, but for me, it works. And the biggest piece of this all is outside of him just loving me and supporting me and respecting me, but he gives me space and time to be me and do me. And I know early on that was
It was
a
different.
struggle, and I wouldn't even say a struggle. It was just unusual for him to be in a relationship and someone says, "Okay, I need my space. I love you. There's nothing wrong. There's no issues here. I just need to be alone. Let me," and it's not even that I have anything I need to work through. I just need my quiet time. And we created a room and a space for that. And I encouraged him to start taking advantage of it and having his quiet time. Because an extrovert, he didn't understand what that meant or what that was supposed to feel like. Being alone, being in his feelings, being in this space of silence. I'm sure he was crawling out of his skin at different times because it's like to sit still, to sit in silence, and there's no music, there's not the game on, there's nobody talking. Silence.
Yeah.
And over time, meditation. We get up every morning at 4 a.m., meditate, and then we'd work out together and just kind of start our day together. And then we'd come home and we'd cook and we'd sit down and whatever and kind of end our day together. So, rituals, putting together those practices that make sense for both of you. And I love the fact that he's so open minded and transparent about doing things that most men probably would cringe or think that, oh, well, that's going to make me look a certain way. No. If it keeps the peace in our home, would you agree? If it keeps the peace in our home, we're going to support it. We're going to do whatever it takes because I think we all can say our environment and our past traumas and experiences, they're just lurking and waiting to be a part of our future. And if we don't address those things, if we don't figure out how to communicate and problem solve and address things and even be uncomfortable,
Well,
it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like we're not going to always, agree. But if we're not holding things and resenting each other, and I think that's another thing I took away from my marriage, my previous marriage, is that because we didn't check in, because we didn't make sure we talked about, did I do something that set you off, or is there something you don't like about me, or whatever. We both were ships passing in the night. I thought we were great, and come to find out we were so far from great. And I refuse to let 10, 20 years pass by and not truly understand and know what my partner needs and wants, if he's okay, and if I've done anything to trigger him or set him off. I think those are the little things that can really set you up for a successful marriage is those check-ins. Like ask him, are you okay? How are you doing? And don't just ask it and then you're on to something else. No, let's set time aside and be intentional. We would play games. We would, I mean, just really be present when we're with each other. And we still do. You know, and I'll tell him, I don't feel connected. We're not connected. And when he knows when I say that,
Shut everything
he's
down. Come
dropping
on.
everything because that means, okay, something's off. We need to align.
Well, I mean, when you find someone who enhances your peace, you definitely want to guard that. And to me, that's one of those things that I've come to appreciate so much. Is my home is my peace of mind. That is definitely my castle. And what you do with a castle is you build a moat around it so no one can just come in, no one can just disturb your peace unless you invite them in. And so one of the things that I love is that we guard this that we've created with everything that we have, because I mean, I chose to take her on this journey. She was, like she said, she was fine doing what she was doing. But once it got to that point and I dropped on my knee, I understood. I mean, it's a constant battle because we all have different aspirations, and I want us to go this way, and she's like, no, the left is better. So finding our groove, finding that common ground was the baseline. And then once we did, all we're doing is just stacking up on it. And I cannot risk creating tension in the house. That's something that I will not do.
Yes. Yes, yes. That I love that. You guys said, I mean, we could talk for hours, literally for hours, but one of the things that I hear both of you say is this friendship, right? So I believe, and that's something that in none of my marriages that I had, that we were friends. And so I think that's such a huge component that we skip over when it comes to romantic relationships, any relationship, but particularly in romantic relationship, is the
Mhm.
friendship. And then finding a formula that works, right? Like I said, when we first started, so many times we try to model our relationships off of things that we've seen, whether it's family or TV or culture or social media. And we really need to find our formula. So I want to say thank you to you both for joining me again on the show. I have just enjoyed hearing your journey again. Hopefully the listeners have too, but thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. So thank you again for joining us on another episode of When Love Comes, the podcast. If it is your first time, thanks for being here. If you have been here before, thanks for coming back. Look, guys, we have got tons of episodes. So if you haven't had a chance, go back, listen to the rest of season 2, season 1. I'm really just sharing those stories to help you guys heal, to help you guys create a life that you love, to help you guys to prepare for the love that you deserve. So I'll see you next time.